If your soul just nodded, let YouTube know this belongs to more people like you. Have you ever felt like you were born with memories no one talks about? Like the truth was always just behind the curtain? You wake up tired, not in your body, but in your being. You look around and wonder why the world still believes in the mask, when you've already started shedding yours. This isn't burnout, this isn't depression, this is sacred dissonance. The quiet ache of a soul approaching its last round in the game, and remembering the rules no longer apply. Today, I'll walk with you through 9 unmistakable signs that your journey through lifetimes is nearing its end. But this isn't about belief. It's about recognition, visceral, emotional, undeniable, because when the soul begins to complete its karmic mission, reality shifts. Time bends, synchronicities multiply, and something inside you whispers, "You're almost home." Let's begin with the part no one ever talks about, but you've felt it all along. You've felt it for years, haven't you? Like you're living someone else's life. Like the world around you keeps playing a role you can't quite believe in anymore. People laugh at things that don't move you. You walk into rooms and feel like a ghost at a masquerade. And that weight in your chest, that's not sadness. It's the memory of something real, something you haven't touched in this lifetime yet. This isn't depression, it's dissonance. A deep, soul-level dissonance that whispers, "This isn't your home." Edgar Cayce called it cosmic homesickness, a subtle ache of the spirit nearing the edge of its final life cycle. You're not broken. You're remembering that the material world is a thin veil and you've started seeing through it. That's why the noise bothers you more lately, why silence feels more like truth. People around you say, "Be grateful," but how do you explain that you are grateful and still something feels missing? Not outside, inside. Like the walls of your life are too tight now. What you once called normal feels like a costume stitched from expectations. And every time you play along, something in you dies a little more. You're not failing at life. You're outgrowing an illusion. That mirror you avoid in the morning, it knows. It reflects not just your face, but the subtle war behind your eyes. The war between who the world trained you to be and who you actually are. This is the projection of reality at its peak, your identity clashing with your awareness. But here's the twist, that friction is sacred. It's how ego dissolution begins, and where ego cracks, light enters. You see, most people spend lifetimes building a house inside the dream, but you're waking up inside it. You're seeing that time bends, that space isn't fixed. That non-linear reality means everything is happening at once, and you're just now tuning in. That moment you looked at the stars and cried without knowing why, that was your soul growth breaking through the illusion of time. What you feel isn't detachment, it's transcendence. It's the soul whispering, "This isn't your first time, and it may be your last." That quiet certainty, that's self-realization. And once it starts, nothing, and I mean nothing, feels the same. Not because the world changed, but because you finally saw it was never real to begin with, just a shadow of something far more infinite. So tonight, before bed, sit in the dark. No music, no phone, just breathe. And ask yourself, gently, what part of me no longer fits this life? Don't answer, just listen, because the silence will tell you everything you forgot, and what happens after changes everything. You walk into a place you've never been, but your breath catches. You know this hallway, you remember that tree. A stranger says something, and your heart beats like a memory just got triggered. That's not coincidence, that's not imagination. It's the thinning veil of time, unraveling in your mind. Edgar Cayce called it a sign. Your soul is nearing karmic completion. This isn't about remembering a past life. It's about existing in multiple timelines at once. Each déjà vu is a soul echo, a residue from another self, whispering through the cracks of this reality. That moment when you freeze, certain you've lived this before, you have. Not metaphorically, literally. Time doesn't move in a line. It loops, it folds, it reflects. And you're starting to see the folds. The more you awaken, the more these moments multiply. You'll find yourself knowing things before they happen, feeling places before you arrive, recognizing people before they speak. These aren't glitches, they're invitations. Your awareness is shifting from local to cosmic. You're no longer trapped in the illusion of time. You're stepping into a quantum physics reality where consciousness isn't bound. At first, it's disorienting. You may even wonder if you're losing your mind. But it's not madness. It's the unraveling of the holographic universe. Your soul is remembering how reality works, as a projection, not a fixed truth. That restaurant you swear you've been to? That dream that felt too real? They're fragments of your multidimensional memory bleeding through. The more your ego loosens, the more vivid it becomes. The girl who cries without reason in the parking lot, the man who stares too long at the clouds, they're feeling it too. This awareness isn't rare, it's just buried, covered by distractions, dulled by doubt. But once it resurfaces, it opens something ancient, and it doesn't close again. You start to live with a question always burning beneath the surface. How much of this is real? Not in a paranoid way, in a liberated one, because déjà vu isn't about fear, it's about identity remembering itself. It's your higher self tapping you on the shoulder saying, you're not just here, you're everywhere. You're not broken, you're bleeding through dimensions. Here's a practice. Next time you feel déjà vu, pause, breathe. Place your hand on your chest and whisper, I remember. Let it echo. Don't chase the meaning, just feel the thread connecting your soul to something older than your name. Because what's breaking is not your mind. It's the illusion that you were ever just this body. There's something strange about the way you think of death now. Not as an end, but as a return. Not as fear, but as a kind of homecoming. It's not morbid, it's memory. You don't want to die, you just don't flinch at the idea. That peace you feel when others panic, that's not indifference. That's the soul recognizing what it already knows. Edgar Cayce said it clearly. For those nearing their final life cycle, death becomes familiar. Like stepping off a stage you've performed on for lifetimes. You've played every role, learned every line, and now, backstage, you're no longer afraid of the curtain. Because you understand what's behind it is more real than anything you've acted out here. That's why you grieve differently. Not with despair, but with awe. You look at loss and feel it deeply. Yes, but you also feel the silence behind. At the doorway, the beyond. When someone close to you passes, you don't say goodbye. You say, until again. That's not poetic, it's perception. Your awareness has cracked open. You see more now, and it changes how you live. You don't chase things like you used to. You don't fear missing out. You savor, you pause, you breathe deeper. You know, not just believe, that what matters cannot be lost, that death is just a bend in the labyrinth. And you're already holding the map. That's what transcendence feels like. Quiet certainty. This freedom can confuse others. They think you're detached, but really you're present, because you're not clinging. You're dancing with time instead of running from it. You see the illusion of time more clearly. You understand now that every goodbye is already seeded with reunion, every ending, a folding of realities, not a collapse. And so, instead of resisting change, you walk toward it. Instead of fearing death, you use it as a compass. What you once avoided, you now sit with. Death teaches you how to live. It sharpens what matters. It dissolves the false self. And in that emptying, the self-realization begins. Not as a theory, as a lived truth. Try this. Write a letter to the version of you that feared death. Fold it, burn it, safely. Let the smoke rise as if you're returning a memory to the sky, because you are not ending, you're unfolding, and what waits beyond the veil might just feel like home. You notice the clock, 11:11. Again, a song plays, the one that answered your silent question. You think of someone, and they call. At first, it felt like coincidence, but now it feels choreographed, like reality is responding to you, and maybe, just maybe, it is. Edgar Cayce called this the development of co-creative awareness. This is what happens when your consciousness starts interacting with the fabric of existence. The material world stops being a stage and starts acting like a mirror. Every reflection carries a message. Every moment becomes a portal. The more your inner world shifts, the more the outer world bends to meet it. You're not imagining it, you're participating in it. You start to understand life isn't happening to you. It's happening with you. These synchronicities aren't signs from out there. They're echoes of your own resonance, evidence that your frequency is aligning with something greater, something you once called fate, but now recognize as design. Every alignment confirms you are not lost. You are being guided. It's not about superstition, it's about awareness. When you change internally, the symbols around you reconfigure. Your thoughts become architecture. Your energy becomes magnet. The universe is not cold, it's intimate. And you're beginning to speak its language. The random becomes radiant, the small sacred. But here's the twist. The more synchronicity you notice, the more responsibility you feel. Because now you know you're part of the design. No more playing small. No more pretending it's all chaos. You begin to act with intention, speak with presence, choose with clarity, because every move you make echoes. This is the edge of spiritual awakening. The moment where faith turns into knowing, where you stop seeking proof, because your life becomes the proof. And suddenly, everything starts to feel meaningful. Even the pain, even the waiting, because it's all connected. And your soul, it's listening. Tonight, take a journal. Write down the 3 coincidences that won't leave your mind. Then ask, what are they trying to show me about who I really am? Not what you want, what you are. Because the universe isn't answering your thoughts, it's responding to your frequency. Once, you chased. You dreamed with urgency. You made vision boards, hustled, craved, measured your worth in checklists and milestones. But now, something's shifted. You still care. But the grasping is gone. It's not that you gave up. It's that you woke up. The material world doesn't hypnotize you like it used to. You've started seeing through the shine. Where once you equated progress with striving, now you equate it with peace. Not passivity, presence. There's clarity in your choices now. You don't need to want everything, just what aligns. That serene space between needing and allowing. That's evolution. That's karmic completion. The soul no longer driven by lack, but guided by resonance. You begin to notice how noisy the world is with wanting. Ads scream, gurus promise, trends seduce. But deep down, you feel quiet. Not because you've lost ambition, but because you've found direction. The ego screams more, but your soul whispers enough. That whisper, that's freedom. That's what Edgar Cayce called returning to your superconscious state. It's subtle at first. You stop comparing. You no longer perform. You pause before saying yes. You observe desires rise and fall like waves, without jumping into each. When it's not detachment, it's discernment. And that discernment isn't cold. It's clear. You're not rejecting the world. You're reclaiming your power to choose what truly matters. But here's the paradox. The less you need, the more arrives. Not because you're manifesting harder, but because your energy is clean. You're no longer radiating desperation. You're embodying alignment, and alignment doesn't chase, it attracts. That's projection of reality at its highest level, being the frequency you once thought you had to pursue. You feel it in your body. Less tension, more breath. You look at goals and see tools, not trophies. You don't ask, what can I get, but what can I become? That shift, that self-realization, and when you live from that space, even your desires transform. They become echoes of your soul's expansion, not bandages for your pain. Try this. Write down the 3 things you thought you needed 5 years ago. Then ask, did they really matter, or did they teach me something deeper? That list will reveal more than any vision board ever could, because the real prize was always the person you were becoming in the letting go. Somewhere along the way, you stop taking things at face value. You look around, and it all feels staged, not fake, just fragile, as if the world is made of code, not pixels and bytes, but thoughts and beliefs. And you've begun to see the projection of reality in real time, not as theory, but as felt truth. There's a moment, maybe it already happened, when you paused and thought, this can't be all there is. And something cracked, not outside, inside. A veil shifted. You started to notice how people live inside their own stories, how the same room feels different when you're calm, how the world responds when your inner state changes. That's not philosophy, that's quantum physics. In action, it's like waking up in a dream, but not leaving it. Just realizing it's a dream. You see how everything you touch is tinted by your perception. You no longer believe in objectivity, you believe in resonance. You realize the material world is malleable, sculpted by emotion, shaped by belief. And you've begun asking the real question, what is real? Edgar Cayce hinted at this. The world is not solid, it's symbolic. A mirror, a canvas, a training ground, a kind of simulation, not in the sci-fi sense, but in the sacred. You're not just in the dream, you're dreaming it. That shift of perspective is everything, and once it happens, you can't unsee it. You start living differently, you speak slower, listen deeper, choose thoughts like you choose seeds. Because you know, what you plant becomes the world you walk through. That's the power of awareness. You stop blaming, start co-creating, and suddenly even pain feels purposeful. Even chaos feels coded with messages. This isn't detachment, it's deepening. The more you accept that reality is a projection, the more responsible you become for your inner world. Not to control outcomes, but to honor your alignment. You begin to dissolve the illusion of time, watching how intention bends events. And in that unfolding, you touch something ancient. Try this. Next time you feel overwhelmed by the world, ask yourself, what is this showing me about what I believe? Not what's true, what you believe. Because in a holographic universe, your beliefs don't just shape perception, they generate experience. At some point, the question changed. It used to be, who am I? Now, it's, what am I? That's not a crisis, that's a portal. Because the truth is, the version of you the world applauded, the achiever, the helper, the one who always smiles, wasn't you. It was a mask, a survival strategy, a shape you molded around pain. And now, that shape no longer fits. This is where the ego begins to dissolve, not violently, naturally, like ice melting into the ocean. You don't need to kill it. You just stop feeding it. The stories that once defined you start to feel shallow. The name, the title, the roles, they lose their grip. Because deep down, you remember you are not the story. You are the space it unfolds in. Edgar Cayce called this return to the superconscious state. A remembering of self not as identity, but as awareness. Not the wave, the ocean, not the actor, the light behind the scene. And as that remembering unfolds, you stop defending, you stop performing, you stop clinging to what never belonged to you. But here's the paradox. Losing the false self feels like dying. That's why most people resist it, because for a moment you'll feel empty, but stay in that emptiness long enough, and something holy emerges, something untouched by trauma, praise, or rejection, something timeless. That is universal consciousness. Pure, quiet, unshakable. You'll know it when it arrives. The silence becomes sacred, the stillness full. You'll sit alone and not feel lonely. You'll look in the mirror and feel less like a person and more like presence. No need to prove, no need to be understood, just being. And from that place, you act, not to become, but to express. The old self may try to return. That's normal. Just don't argue. Smile at it like an old photograph. Thank it, bless it, but don't climb back in. You've outgrown that skin. You're no longer interested in being impressive. You're interested in being real. And in this identity, shift, everything softens. Even your ambition becomes love in motion. Try this. Sit in front of a mirror, not to fix, not to judge, just to see. Look into your own eyes and whisper, I remember you. Stay there. Let whatever rises, rise. Because the one who's watching isn't who you thought you were. It's who you've always been. There's a moment, subtle but unforgettable, when someone cries and your own chest tightens, not out of sympathy, but as if their grief is yours. You've started feeling everything deeper, animals, strangers, even silence. That's not weakness, that's the veil thinning. That's the universal consciousness remembering itself through you. This isn't just compassion, it's fusion. The sense that you and they are no longer separate. The old boundaries blur. The pain you once called theirs now vibrates in your bones. You don't just understand suffering, you become it. This is sacred. Empathy? The kind that leads to transformation, not exhaustion. Edgar Cayce taught that as we reach the end of our soul growth, empathy intensifies. Because only by feeling everything can we dissolve the illusion of separation. You don't need to try, it just happens. You watch the news, and it hurts. You touch a tree, and it calms you. The entire world becomes a nervous system, and you're plugged in. But here's the challenge. Deep empathy can feel overwhelming. You might wonder, am I too sensitive? No, you're awake. The world has taught you to numb, to build walls. But the truth is, you're designed to feel. You're here to transmit. The pain you carry isn't always yours, but it's always yours to transmute, and so your ethics shift. Not from fear or rules, but from felt truth. You don't kill what you understand. You don't exploit what you've become. You start making choices from that expanded sense of we. That's not moralism. That's self-realization. You see the earth as part of your body. Every life, a reflection. This is the gateway to quiet power. You walk into a room and the energy shifts. Not because you demand attention, but because you radiate presence. You become a sanctuary for others, and not by saving them, just by being what they forgot was possible. That's empathy turned alchemy. Try this. The next time someone annoys you, ask, what pain must they carry to act like this? Then pause, not to excuse, but to understand. That pause might be the most spiritual thing you do all day. One day you realize something's missing, but for once it's not pain. It's the pattern. That loop you used to live inside, gone. The addiction, the self-sabotage, the toxic chase. You didn't fix it, it just fell away. And you wonder, was it ever really mine? That's the mystery of karmic completion. It ends without a fight. Edgar Cayce described this moment as a soul completing its final life cycle. Not because everything is perfect, but because nothing controls you anymore. The triggers no longer trigger. The cycle lost its grip. Not because you finally overpowered it, but because you finally understood it. And what's understood is integrated. You stop identifying with old pain. You stop repeating the same emotional weather. You notice the arguments don't bait you, the temptations don't pull, the grief still visits, but it doesn't stay. This isn't apathy, it's awareness. The kind that melts illusion. You didn't lose your edge, you lost your chains. And here's what's wild, people notice. You've changed, they say, and not always with joy, because the old roles you played in their drama, you've dropped them. You no longer fit inside their expectations, but you weren't born to fit. You were born to awaken. And now, the material world feels more like a test you've passed. This is not about perfection, it's about transcendence. You'll still feel, still stumble, but now there's space. Space between stimulus and response, space to choose. That space is sacred. It's the soul remembering its freedom. You're not reactive, you're reflective. That shift, that's consciousness fully alive. You live lighter, freer, but deeper. Because the freedom isn't about escaping, it's about embodying. You begin to ask, who am I without my wounds? And the answer isn't loud, it's quiet. It feels like peace, and peace, real peace, is unfamiliar, only to those who lived too long in chaos. Try this. Write down the pattern that ruled your life 5 years ago. Now, write what replaced it. If it's peace, integration, or simply silence, honor that. That's not a coincidence. That's evolution. You didn't heal by force. You healed by truth. And truth always sets you free. If even one of these signs felt like a mirror, don't ignore it. Your soul didn't bring you here by accident. This isn't entertainment, it's remembrance. And remembrance is sacred, because the moment you recognize yourself in a truth, you can't go back to pretending. You don't need more motivation. You need more stillness, more listening, more trust in the part of you that already knows. That's what this video was about, not giving you answers, but waking up the ancient part of you that's always held them. What are you pretending not to know? What part of you have you been negotiating just to survive? And most of all, who would you become if you stopped waiting for permission? If this video brought you clarity, relief, or even a deeper kind of question, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone whose soul might be whispering too. And if this message unlocked something real for you, then you're not done yet. If this video gave you insight into reincarnation, karmic cycles, and your deeper identity, don't stop here. Click here and come with me to the next step. That next video is not just a continuation, it's an activation. You've come this far. Let's walk through the next door together.